We're live. Make sure it's showing up here.
Yeah.
All right. There we are. Hey, everybody.
Hi, everyone, again. Happy Tuesday. We have a special guest with us today, Judy Auble with Toklat, and she is going to talk about Myler Bits.
Hi, guys.
So, welcome, Judy, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Please, everybody, please put your questions in the comments or just tell us you're here with a hello, because at the end, one lucky commenter is going to win a Myler Bit of their choice. And what that means is that they will get a consult with Dale Myler, and he will help you decide what bit is best for you, and then you will get to choose. Also, right now, select Toklat products are 15% off until June 15th, and that includes all Myler Bits. And in addition to that, you're going to get a free ball cap when you order a Myler Bit. So lots of goodies. So let's get started. Judy, I think the first question that we wanted to start you out with is, what is the relationship between Toklat and Myler?
So Myler is a family name. It's three brothers out of Missouri, Ron, Dale, and Bob Myler. And about 22 years ago, they met the owner of Toklat, Jim Marine, at a horse show. And they just started talking and came up with a plan. The Mylers have been hand-making bits and still do in Missouri, but they wanted to reach more people. And Toklat specializes in quality manufacturing, so they partnered with Toklat so we could take their designs, manufacture them on a larger scale, and just basically reach more horses. One thing the Mylers are really passionate about is making sure horses are bitted as best as possible. And they've just been committed to that all along. And it's a commitment they kind of passed along to those of us at Toklat. So if you talk to any of us at an expo, you'll find that we're super passionate about Myler and what it can do for your horse. And it's just been a great relationship for the last, 20 plus years.
Is there an easy way to know what level of bit your horse needs?
So when you talk about the levels, people get a little confused because they don't really know what it means. So when you go into a tack shop, or if you go into Valley Vet's showroom and you see Myler Bits hanging up on a wall, you'll see that they all have these little colored tags on them. And that's the color-coded level. And what the level refers to on the bit is the degree of tongue pressure that mouthpiece applies. So the entire Myler philosophy is pretty simple. It's basically built around giving horses as much tongue relief as that horse can mentally handle. And it's also what sets Myler apart from other bits. So when you look at other bits, they tend to all look pretty much the same. I have a little cheat stash back here. So for example, this mouthpiece, this is one of our regular bits. It's not a Myler bit. But this is what we call the single joint, and I'm pretty sure every horse person has seen and ridden in this through the course of their careers. And this mouthpiece is ubiquitous. It's what 90% of horses are going in right now. So what the Mylers figured out is that what this mouthpiece actually does when you pull back on the reins, so your degree of pull from the saddle is like this. And it can't do this, it has to do this when you pull back on the bit. So the effect of a broken mouthpiece like this is that it rotates down onto the tongue. When it rotates down onto the tongue, it applies a huge amount of tongue pressure. And the reason that that's important is because the tongue is a really big, thick muscle that's attached to the neck, the shoulders, and the back. So when you apply pressure to it, you pin it down and it can't move, you create tension in the neck, the shoulders, and the back. So it's very similar to putting a band around your bicep and then trying to exercise. Like, you can move your arm, but that muscle is not going to develop properly if it's restricted from movement. And so what horses can't do when their tongue is actually restricted like that is they can't go forward very easily. So that's when they start to try to find ways around that tongue pressure. So behaviors like throwing your nose in the air, or going behind the bit, or opening your mouth, or sticking his tongue out of his mouth, or pushing down through the bit, those are all behaviors horses are doing to get around that tongue pressure. So what Myler did is they came up with a plan to build mouthpieces that offer horses increasing degrees of tongue relief. So the levels, level 1, 2, 2, 3, and 3, actually go softer as you go up in level. So a level 1 mouthpiece would be a mouthpiece like this. And for us, this is the strongest mouthpiece. So this applies maximum tongue pressure. And that's true of a regular broken bit like this that's not a Myler, but it's also true of a Myler level 1. This is an example of a Myler level 1. It still collapses. It's a little kinder. It's a little softer because this barrel distributes the pressure instead of a joint. It collapses into a U instead of a V. This one collapses into a V, so it clamps down on the bars. But at the end of the day, mechanically, this mouthpiece does the same thing this mouthpiece does. It applies a lot of tongue pressure. So as you go up in the Myler levels, you're actually going softer and softer. And the part that people get really confused by is that they tend to think this is a soft mouthpiece when for us, it is in fact the exact opposite. Like this is a mouthpiece that very few, if any, horses ever really need to be ridden in. And so we would try to get a horse as far up in the levels as that horse's training and disposition would carry it. And that's when you start to get into some of the mouthpieces that look different. They look a little different from the standard broken mouthpieces, so people tend to think they're a little harsher. But essentially, all we're trying to do is bit every horse for as much tongue relief as that horse can mentally handle. So it's a huge question to say, well, then how do I go about selecting a bit for my horse? But when you apply a basic methodology based on tongue pressure and tongue relief, and you recognize that the better schooled and the better minded a horse is, the more tongue relief he deserves, now suddenly it opens up all these other levels to your thinking. And considering horses are they're just like children. So if you have a little kid and he starts kindergarten and you give him a book to learn to read from, you don't make him learn to read from that book until he graduates from high school. So horses are just like people. They learn as a graduated process. So you may start a young horse off in a lower level mouthpiece because you need to apply some tongue pressure to teach him to give to the bit. But as that horse is educated and gains confidence and understanding and earns your respect, at some point he's going to need more tongue relief. And that's kind of where the levels come in. So the levels on the mouthpieces are just to help you understand what direction you should be going when you're trying to figure out what to do with your horse.
What are some strong indicators that your horse needs a bit change?
So those behaviors that I mentioned, in which are actually, probably can't see the pictures up here, but they're illustrated in these pictures. Basically, whenever you engage the reins, if you are finding repeatedly and consistently that your horse is going above the bit, so basically his nose is going up, so the vertical is when he's perfectly perpendicular to the ground. So if he's going above the bit, or he's going behind the bit, or he's opening his mouth, or he's sticking his tongue out of his mouth, that's fairly dramatic. Rooting, running through the bit, and it's all related to your rein pressure. If you start to see that behavior pretty consistently, that's an indicator that your horse is asking for tongue relief. So you may, if you're riding in an arena, and you're going around and he's doing really well and he's framed up and he's where he's supposed to be, and then 3 or 4 strides later he suddenly comes out of the bridle and then he comes back again and he just seesaws back and forth from that behavior. So what you have in that case, it gets a little frustrating because you're like, well, he's doing so well and then he's not. And basically what he's saying to you is, I can do it, but I can only do it for a short amount of time until I really need some tongue relief. Because basically, if a horse can't go forward comfortably when his tongue is restricted, then he's going to have to find a way around that tongue pressure. And so that's all those, we call them signs of resistance. All those signs of resistance point towards you needing to change your bit. Now, we always qualify that by saying, yes, you should have good dental checkups on your horses regularly. You should also consider medical issues and saddle fit. But honestly, people are pretty tuned into their horses, and they sometimes see those behaviors over and over again, and they tend to write it off as just bad behavior. He's being disobedient, he's being evasive, he's not respecting my authority, and it certainly can expand to that. It can sort of escalate to that issue. But at the beginning, really what that horse is saying is physically, I can't do the thing you're asking me to do. You've set me up for failure by writing in this broken mouthpiece that when you ask me to do something, you interfere with my actual ability to physically do it. And so once people start thinking about that and looking at horses with that in mind, then the whole resistance thing becomes a whole different problem to solve. It's not obedience, it's not authority, it's not respect. It is more about that horse's physical comfort. I mean, at the end of the day, a bit can only do two things. A bit does not train a horse. Bits can only either encourage relaxation or create resistance. And if you are riding a horse and you feel like you have an adversarial relationship every time you touch the reins, then your bit is creating that resistance. If you have a horse who's relaxed in the bridle, and that means he stays framed up, he stays on the bit, his ears are forward, his tail's quiet, he's got good, muscle flexibility from nose to tail, and good motion and movement, and that's a relaxed horse. It doesn't mean he's not athletic, it just means that the bit's not interfering with his ability to function. And a lot of people have never ridden a horse and experienced that actual feeling, which is really, really sad because it's a fairly simple thing to sort out. So yeah.
We have a question from Sally. How much does the physical composition of a horse's mouth change as they age?
Well, obviously the dentition is a huge thing. So young horses from when they're born until they're mature, their dentition changes dramatically. So that is super important in terms of having regular dental checkups, especially on a young horse. And whenever you have a horse that's always, he always acts like this, and then one day he doesn't, whenever you have a rapid onset change, then that is something to really consider having his dentition checked. I would say that a lot of the really dramatic changes happen mostly when horses are right about at that age in the average sport for training. So usually around 4 to 6 years old. That's when a lot of mouth changes happen. So that's when bitting can become a little bit more challenging. As far as physical conformation, I have Arabs, and they are not full grown until they're 7. So there's lots of physical changes that can happen over the 3 or 4 years from when you start a 4-year-old to 7 years old. So yeah, I mean, it's something to definitely consider. And the thing about horses is they're not machines. They're not motorcycles. They're not bikes. They're living organisms, and they think. And so understanding that if a horse is acting out of character, then that's the time when you have to pull back and kind of say, what's not working? And yes, check medical, check dental. But if you're seeing, usually people know. They know they're riding and they start to feel something's a little off with the rein pressure whenever they engage the reins. They get a feel that the horse is not happy. It's something to do with the bit. But the problem they have is there's no really good information out there to help them sort out the bit. If you go into a store and you just ask for a bit, they'll probably show you a snaffle like the one I just had. And so it's really difficult to get good information on bits. That's not a lot of misinformation. And that's one reason we came out with this book. The book, it's really applicable across any bit. It's not about Myler Bits. It's really about how bits work mechanically and how they function. And you can apply this tongue pressure, tongue relief thought process to your bucket. I know everybody has a bucket of bits sitting in their barn. And you can just sort them out on the floor once you understand what makes a level 1, level 2, level 2, 3, and level 3 bit. You can sort them out by category and see what you have actually in that bucket of bits that might work better for your horse. And that is the reason we did the book, is because there's no good, coherent, solid set of information about bitting out there that helps you actively select a bit for your horse. There's lots of great books on types of bits, and even some on the mechanics of bits, but there's not really one that goes through the process of actually bitting your horse.
Nancy asked, what about Western bits?
We make English and Western. We make tons of Western bits. I couldn't put them all here, so I just put the ones that kind of showed the cheek pieces and the different mouth levels. But we make bits for every discipline. Toklat, we don't have driving bits currently. That's probably the only real category that we're missing that have specialized cheeks, but they're certainly available as handmade bits from the Mylers. But in Western, we have a full complement of bits from level 1 to level 3, and in every cheek piece, and even shank versus ring bits, and we have every conceivable combination you could imagine. Although I'm sure someone will ask for one we don't have. So now that I've issued that challenge.
Heather asked, what do you recommend for colt starting?
So for colt starting is a really interesting question. Colts, young horses, are basically large, stupid, but very powerful. So we would want to use the tongue as a primary pressure point. So on a horse's head, the places where you can apply pressure to communicate with your horse would be the tongue, the bar of the mouth, the lip, the curb spot down here under the chin, and the pole, and then depending on the style and the mechanics of the bit, the nose. So when you have a very large, young, uneducated horse, the best place to apply pressure to control and communicate with that horse is the tongue. So what we would do is we would not start with a level 1 mouthpiece. So in Myler, like I said, this is a level 1 mouthpiece. But the problem with level 1 mouthpieces is they offer no tongue relief at all. So we would actually start preferably level 2. And keep in mind, we really focus on the mouthpiece. So ignore the cheek pieces, because when I show you a bit, I'm really talking about the mouthpiece, and it just happens to be the cheek piece that's on the bit when I'm talking about it. But this is a level 2 mouthpiece. This mouthpiece is called the 04. And you can see it's really similar to this little level 1 mouthpiece that I just showed you. So when I pick it up in the middle and it drops, it breaks. That's a level 1 mouthpiece. If a bit breaks in the middle, it's going to rotate down onto the tongue. This level 2 mouthpiece, if I pick it up in the middle, it will drop. It will rotate down onto the tongue. But the difference is that there is, and I don't know how well you can see this, there is a little port under this barrel that allows the tongue to pass under it. So what this bit is doing, what this mouthpiece is doing, is using the tongue as a primary pressure point, but also introducing the concept of tongue relief. And for starting colts, it's a really nice place to start, is that 04 mouthpiece. Because it will use the tongue as a pressure point. So you apply the pressure, you restrict his ability to move his tongue, he learns to give to the bit. He immediately gives to that pressure because he can't do anything else, and you release him, and that's how he learns to give to the bit. But when he's relaxed and going forward, then there's some place for his tongue to pass under the bit. And what that will do is teach him that when he's relaxed and going forward, that he can actually swallow, and it won't set him up for every time you touch the reins, you're going to restrict my ability to move. So it's a nice place to start. It's pretty inoffensive for a young horse, but it will apply the pressure in the place that they really need that pressure applied to learn to give to the bit. As far as cheek pieces go for starting a young horse, there's just a wealth of cheek pieces out there, but the one that we would probably recommend is our combination bit. And the combination bit is, I have it on a Western training head stall, and some of you may have seen this floating around. The combination bit is basically a combination of a shank, a ring, and a hackamore. It's a little different. I can make this where you can see it better. So it has a nose band and a chin strap. And tell me if this is hard for you to see. But it's specifically for Western riding, where horses are often started in bosals. So they're taught from the nose pressure to start with, and then they graduate to a snaffle. So what this bit will do is, this is one of the patented features of a Myler combination bit, is this unique cheek piece here. So when you pull back on the reins, the nose and the chin are connected, and what will happen is you get this action, and it engages the chin and the nose band together. What doesn't happen is the mouthpiece doesn't engage. So the mouthpiece doesn't engage until they ignore the nose and chin pressure. So if the horse he's been haltered since he was a baby, you've been training him in a bosal, when you start using this, he learns to carry the bit, but you're not 100% depending on that bit. As soon as you put a snaffle in a horse's mouth and touch the reins, you're using the bit. And there's just a huge amount of trial and error that horses have to go through to figure out what you're asking. So when you use a combination bit, you're using the nose and chin pressure and pull pressure first. And then if he ignores that, this mouthpiece will slide about 1 inch. If he feels the slide, then and he gives to the bit, then it will relax. If he ignores it, it will hit a stop. It's not a gag. It'll hit a stop, and then the mouthpiece will engage. And in this case, it's the level 2 04 mouthpiece. It'll apply some tongue pressure. So it basically gives him 3 opportunities to respond to your rein pressure And if he does it, then it relaxes. But if it doesn't, then he gets the next level of pressure that he has to deal with. And so it's a really nice tool for starting young horses for exactly the reason I just said. He can carry the bit without you depending on the bit, but the bit is there so he can learn how to use the bit, and it keeps the horse really light and soft. You can keep them in it for as long as you possibly can. You can transition them into a shank bit or a curb bit or whatever your next finished bit is going to be. But it eliminates a lot of the guesswork that horses have to go through. So it's my favorite tool for starting my own horses. It's what I use primarily.
How do you know what mouthpiece size to buy? Is there an easy way to measure?
When you measure, there's a couple tools out there that you can get that help for measuring. If you are going to old school it and you're at home and you just have what you have, then the easiest thing to use is the handle of an old wooden spoon. So it's basically a dowel. And if you can put it in your horse's mouth at the point about which the bit would sit, mark it with a marker, and then measure, and then go to the next size up. Most bit manufacturers make bits on 1/4 inch increments, and 5 in the bit world is medium. Like basically all quarter horses for the most part until you get into the really big ones are 5 inch. And then if you're measuring, you would go, if he's a little over 5 inch, then you would have to go up to 5.5. So for us, bit fitting is, some people get really wound up about it and they want it to fit exactly. But for us, we want to see at least 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch of bit on each side of the face when the reins are relaxed and the bit is centered. So that means there's enough space there to keep the cheek from touching the horse's face. And when you open a horse's mouth, you look inside, there's about 1.5 inches of lip inside of his mouth. So when he closes his mouth, that lip spreads on the bar of the bit. And we just want to make sure that nothing is going to rub that lip. The lip is a really, really sensitive organ, for want of a better word. And anybody that's ever had chapped lips knows exactly how painful friction on your lips can be. It's a very thin layer of skin over your lip. So the lip should be a pressure point, but not a friction point. And so when you size your bit, we just want to make sure, we would rather err on the side of it being a little too big than snug. We definitely don't want to ever see it snug. We don't want to see rubber bit guards pressed up against the face if that's what you're using. We want to protect those lips at all costs. And so that's kind of how we size. So you just measure and then try to go to the next size. You can also measure a bit that you know has fitted decently along those parameters. Measure it inside to inside and see what its measurement is, and then go from there.
Britt had a question. So do you graduate them when they respond well to a different level?
So if you are using a Myler bit and say you talk to me and I say try this level 2 mouthpiece and you use it, basically if it's not broken, don't fix it. If you're riding in a regular single joint and you can check all the boxes that say your horse is happy. He stays on the bit, his ears forward, his eyes soft, his tail's quiet, he's got good forward momentum and impulsion, then there's no reason to change the bit other than you just heard somebody talking about bits and how much tongue pressure, affects a horse, and now you want to be nicer to your horse. That's not why you would want to change your bit. If you're riding him and he's been going well, and suddenly you start to see these behaviors that I've mentioned, like going above the bit or getting a little heavy, if you can't connect it to a certain specific instance. So for example, if you're trail riding and all your friends take off and your horse is doing the pee-pee dance on the trail and he's pushing into the bit, but he's not going through the bit, well, that's an unusual situation. So I wouldn't judge him based on that. But if you're riding him pretty consistently and he's getting pushy, and you're seeing it whenever you pull back on the reins, he's getting pushy, and you're seeing it across different situations, that's a case where he's telling you something about that bit. So don't change the bit if the horse is going well in the bit. If the horse is going well and he feels relaxed and responsive and you seem to be getting the signals you need and the control you need, then don't change anything. Whether it's a Myler or not a Myler, there's no reason to change that bit. Don't change a bit just to change a bit. That's the message. I talk to a lot of people. They see the sparkly rack at an expo and they're like, "Ooh, I want to buy a new bit." Because we love bits. Horse owners, we love buying sparkly bits. We just love them. And that's not a good reason to change a bit. So just table the enthusiasm and wait to see if your horse actually needs to change. And then just listen to your horse. Your horse will always tell you. You just have to know what you're listening for before you make any rapid changes.
Jackie asked, what is your recommendation on a 4-year-old to graduate to after a junior cow bit? And maybe you need more information on that.
So when we approach bitting, we don't really approach, like, age is not super relevant. It's a little bit. We like to know, like, where the mind development might be. The kind of bit you're currently using is important because we don't want to make a lateral move. So the questions that were I to actually directly talk to Jackie would be, what is your horse doing that makes you think you need to change out of that junior cow horse bit? So what are you not getting, or what is he not getting that makes you think you need to change? And when we go to select a bit for a horse, the two primary things we consider is not really the amount of training that horse has. It's really more about the horse's personality or his disposition. So what we would ask is the simple rendition of evaluating your horse's personality. On a scale, if one end is flighty and anxious, and the other end is really bold and challenging and dominant, and in the middle is your steady Eddie, trustworthy, solid, unflappable, which end of the spectrum, where does your horse fall on that spectrum? And so if your horse is flighty and anxious, he's going to depend more on the rider for a sense of confidence and security. If he's bold and challenging, he's going to take advantage of you at every opportunity to assert his authority. If he's a steady Eddie, if he's a good-minded horse and he's in the middle and he's very trustworthy, then that horse deserves to be bitted a whole lot differently from these other two kinds of horses. So the first part of knowing how much tongue relief your horse can mentally handle is knowing your horse's disposition, knowing where that horse falls on that scale of personality. And remember, it's all about giving that horse as much tongue relief as he can mentally handle. So what I'm saying is the one in the middle can mentally handle way more tongue relief, because the more tongue relief you give, the more freedom you give your horse. So choosing the kind of mouthpiece you use is about the same in evaluating your relationship with your horse as it would be talking to your teenager about driving the car. At what point does your kid deserve to get the car keys and be sent off to run an errand on their own? And it's all about having earned your sense of respect and a sense of responsibility. The more responsible you feel your horse is, the more tongue relief that horse can handle. Now, if you're going to say to me, well, my horse is great 98% of the time, I'm going to bit you for that 2%. So if you're like, oh, 98% of the time he's dead in the middle, but there's that 2% where he tends to lean more towards I'm a raging stallion of the wild prairie and wants to assert himself, well, we will bit you for that 2%, because that's the point at which your safety becomes a real concern. And managing that horse through that little personality quirk is going to be really important versus giving him a ton of freedom where if that happens, you can't do anything about it. So that's the first question, is your horse's personality. The second question that's super telling is what kind of spook does your horse have? So is he super spooky? Something happens, an unusual situation, he blows up, he runs for home with or without you, not a concern, then that's a horse with very poor self-control. If he spooks in place or doesn't spook very all, rarely react, then that's a horse with really good self-control. I mean, spooking is a really natural thing for horses. I always have the analogy that if I was at your house after dark, hiding in your closet, and you came through your front door in the dark and I jumped out at you and went, boo, if you didn't react, that would be weird. So horses are flight animals. If they don't react to unusual things with a flight response, then that's weird. So we want to acknowledge that, but the degree of self-control your horse has will tell you that he's capable of handling a lot more responsibility and a lot more tongue freedom than a horse that has a big blow-up spook. Even a spook that takes him 10 feet away before he comes back to you, that's technically a run out. And so that's a horse that, yeah, he gathers himself and he listens to you, but he does go a little ways. So that's definitely still a horse that, he needs to be managed a little bit. It all comes down to understanding why horses spook and what they're about. So once you have those two things, you have your horse's personality and what kind of spook he has, then I'm gonna say you need to start looking at this, or this level. The better the self-control, the better the personality, then the more likely it's going to be that horse is in level 2, 3, or level 3. A very finished horse, so for example, a show horse, a performance horse that is consistent, dead on, knows his job, has really mastered his technical maneuvers, then that's a horse that's probably a level 3 horse. A trail horse that can go down the trail alone or with a group under control, that can navigate really complicated obstacles, that basically can stand quietly tied at lunch, that's a level 3 horse. And so level 3 should be the bit you aspire to, but you don't want to go there prematurely, because if you have a very pushy trail horse, like I have a 30-year-old gelding, and if I put him in a level 3 mouthpiece, which our most popular one looks like this. This is our 33 mouthpiece. This mouthpiece is so soft that he would literally just be pushy, 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 because he's a very forward horse. So he would take advantage of it. So he never saw this mouthpiece when I was riding him in his peak. But it's a really mild mouthpiece because it's so wide. The port is wide. The tongue can sit completely under the bit. And when you pull back on the bit, the bar passes on either side of the tongue. You can't take the tongue with this bit. And if the tongue is a place you want to apply pressure to get a horse to give to the bit, this bit will not give you that. So you can't say, oh, well, I want my 4-year-old horse to be as comfortable as possible. He will love this. You will not so much. So, because this, for a 4-year-old, could totally take advantage of this. And once he learns how to take advantage, then it's hard to come back from that. So that's why you don't want to jump too far too fast. Let them earn that responsibility, but you also don't want to ignore the signs that say, I really need to change this bit out for something that's giving him more relaxation. And I will tell you that when you talk to people about the signs of resistance and rooting and pushing through the bit and putting their nose over the bit and all the things that people think are bad behavior, when I tell them you need to go to a softer bit, not a harsher bit, it's really counterintuitive. They really want to go to a twist or something that's got edges on it, or a correctional that's going to apply a huge amount of tongue pressure with a twist, perhaps. And we go the opposite. So if your horse is giving you every indication that he's not happy, we want to go softer, not harsher, and pay attention to the horse. That make sense?
We have a question from Colt.
Sure.
And Cole asks, what is the purpose of a gag bit? What tips do you have for curb straps, and what is the proper way to set them up? Such as tightness, material. Yeah, so many questions.
Great questions. So what a gag bit is, people get confused with the combination bit because it does have this big ring on it, and it looks like a gag. So typically what a gag bit does is it has a ring, and the mouthpiece can travel literally all the way around it. I mean, that would be an unpleasant circumstance if you're riding the horse. But it can run all the way up the ring. And they're called elevator bits in English. They were originally designed because when you pull back on the mouthpiece starts traveling the ring, and what would happen is the horse would start carrying his head higher and higher to avoid the pressure. And so they created a really high-headed look for carriage horses. And so people now use them because they think they can actually get more control. They're not horrible. They're not the worst bit unless they're really overused, but there's not a lot to them. As a rider, all you do is just keep pulling. And so I don't find them to be particularly useful or helpful tool at all. As far as the curb strap goes, so that's a really good question. So one thing people don't often think about is what the curb strap is actually there to do. And they tend to want to err on the side of having it too loose because they think it's somehow punishing the horse. Whether it's a strap or a chain, it doesn't really matter. But what a curb strap's purpose in life is this. When you engage the reins, it keeps the bit from over-rotating. It puts a stop on it. It can only rotate so far. So if you have it adjusted really loosely, then the mouthpiece you have is going to over-rotate onto the horse's mouth. The other thing it does is it helps the pole engage. So if I had a bridle on here and you could see this cheek rotating, you would see that it actually would help the pole engage, and it also pre-signals the mouthpiece. So it does those three things. It prevents the bit from over-rotating and controls the rotation. It engages the pole, and then it pre-signals the mouthpiece, so the horse has an opportunity to start giving to the bit before the mouthpiece actually applies the pressure. So having said that, to adjust it properly, we don't use the two-finger rule because quite frankly, if you look at my husband's 2 fingers, they would be this big. It is not a reliable unit of measure. So what we tell people to do is you bridle your horse up with the rein attached, stand next to his head, looking him eye to eye, lift the rein at the wither until you see that cheek rotate. And if the cheek has to rotate more than 1 inch to 1.25 inches before the curve engages, it's way too loose. So snug it up and then try it again. And if you feel like it's a little too quick, then loosen it a hole. But it really needs to be more snug than people typically adjust their curb straps. And it's not, this is a specialized Myler cheek piece, unique to Myler, but on a shank bit, you know, they're leverage bits. And so what the curb strap is there to do on a shank bit is keep that bit from over rotating. And depending on what the mouthpiece is, that curb strap can be even more critical than it normally would be. On this particular bit, this is a broken mouthpiece, it's going to give, and it would be nice to control the rotation, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make or break the way this bit works. It just makes it work better. But if you're on a shank bit like this one, this is a really nice mouthpiece called the 36. So you would want it to have a curb strap on it, and you would want to moderate the degree of rotation that mouthpiece has so that it can't apply too much tongue pressure. This mouthpiece is kind of unique because it's a solid mouthpiece, but the port is tilted forward. So it opens up a huge amount of tongue relief behind the bit, but when you engage the reins, it can actually apply a little bit of tongue pressure. It's not nearly as much as a level 2 mouthpiece, but a little bit, and so the curb strap will keep it from like over rotating onto the tongue. So that's what the curb strap is for. And then I've already forgotten what the 3rd question was. I'm amazed I remembered the 2 questions.
Nancy asked, how do you get a consult?
How do you get a what?
A consult.
You can go to Toklat.com. It's called the Bit Wizard. It's a questionnaire. You fill out that questionnaire, and it goes, when you submit it, it goes straight to Dale. And then Dale will either email you, and sometimes Bob or Ron, but I think they mostly go straight to Dale. He'll either email you or he will give you a call, depending on your preference. And that's basically how you do it. And then once you know what bit you want, you can certainly just come back to Valley Vet and get your smoking deal and your free hat.
Josie had a question. Do you recommend using 2 different bits, one performance competition and another for general riding tuning?
That really depends on the horse and what you're doing. So where that might come into play is if your performance sport is a speed sport and you need a really like quick maneuverability, quick signals, there can't be any lag time, like barrel racing comes to mind, roping, then those bits usually have things like, you know, maybe a chain curb strap instead of a leather curb strap, and things that will, maybe it's a correctional to apply the pressure more quickly. So that might not be suited to a quiet hack, you know, down the countryside where your horse is pretty relaxed. Some horses can go easily in both. If you are in the English world for dressage, for example, a lot of times the bit that you school in can also be the bit you show in, can also be the bit you trail ride in. It really comes down to the horse. If what you do in the arena is super demanding and requires real fine-tuned maneuverability and signaling, then you might find that bit's a little much for any of the other more relaxing sports you're going to do. It really depends on the horse. It really depends on what you're doing with your horse and on the horse itself.
Okay. Michelle asks, what's better or different from O-rings and D-rings?
So an O-ring, for those also called a loose ring, the ring passes completely through the mouthpiece. On a D-ring or an egg butt, so these are both ring bits, but the cheek is fixed, right? So it can't move around. As far as how they function, essentially the same thing happens when you buckle the bridle here on the bit. It can slide around in the bridle, and when you buckle the rein here, the rein will slide to the point of least resistance and pull. That will happen with both cheek pieces. On the loose ring, you have the added bonus, I guess, of everything else moving around too. The mouthpiece can slide around. So in addition to the bit sliding around in the bridle, the rein sliding around on the ring, the mouthpiece can slide around on the cheek piece. So I find the O-rings to be just a really messy bit, like a really sloppy bit, because there's just so much stuff moving around. The irony of an O-ring like this is people tend to use them on young horses, and it works because they can actually get the bit up off their tongue. They can move the bit, which they cannot do with a fixed cheek like this. The bit's where it's going to be. But it also is a super confusing signal. So if you're a young horse and you're trying to figure out what the rein aids mean, and then there's the seat and the legs going and voice commands, and everything is moving around, it just creates a hot mess for a young horse to have to figure out. So they have to go through a lot of trial and error, and anybody that's put a young horse together using O-rings knows that, and they're just accustomed to it taking forever. It can take a long time to get a horse going well in an O-ring, and people think that that's just the way things are. That's just how it has to be. The fixed ring is a little bit better. It's still pretty messy, and both of these are actually the reason that the Mylers came up with. This is basically a modified ring bit. So this is the Western version. We also have it in English as well. So they took the little Western ring bit, and they put a ring here so you can buckle the bridle, and that will keep the bit standing in the right position so it's not sliding around. And then when you buckle the rein down here, the rein will slide a little bit, but ultimately it will stop. And what that does is allow you to use the independent side movement of the mouthpiece. So the barrel in the center of all the Myler bits is basically a bushing. It's not a roller. It's there so you can pick up each side of the bit independently instead of moving the whole mouthpiece at one time. And by fixing the rein in the bit, in the cheek piece, that actually lets you do that more efficiently. So what you get is really precise signal and really good shoulder control. And then the added bonus is the loops at the top so that you could add a curb strap. And what the curb strap does is just take you to the next level. So if you're riding in this without a curb strap and your horse starts to get, a little fussy, a little fidgety, starts to get a little heavy, instead of just buying a whole new bit and going to level 2, 3, you can add the curb strap and see if that helps, get it adjusted properly, and then you will get more life out of your bit. It just makes it way more versatile. We have these modified snaffle cheek pieces in lots of different mouthpieces in both English and Western for that reason. But we really just want the rider to be able to control the mouthpiece in the horse's mouth. For us, the cheek piece is just the vehicle that the rider uses to connect to the mouthpiece. That's why we're not super concerned when we're talking about what your horse needs. Really, the mouthpiece is for the horse and the cheek piece is for the rider. So this is what your horse needs, and then this is whatever discipline you're doing, whatever your hands need. That's what the cheek piece is for.
Good. Tina had a question. Are most of your Western bits AQHA approved for showing?
I would say that it will depend on the rule book for the sport that you are using. I know I don't think we have any bits, for example, where the port exceeds AQHA rules. But I don't know that for sure. We usually ask people to, because the AQHA is a little easier to deal with than, say, the U.S. equestrian dressage rules. So it's easier to just look, and it's pretty easy to measure and figure it out. So most of our bits, I would say, are AQHA legal. I know that NSBA, really, they won't let you use any Myler level 1 mouthpieces, so you can't use anything that looks like this. They just want you to have a single joint. That's pretty basic. And so we make this cheek with a single joint for that reason. That's really the only reason we have it. But beyond that, I'm not aware that we have any bits that aren't legal.
Garrett had a question. What's the most common mouthpiece used on rope horses? I have a hinge port and a new twist mouthpiece with a broken port. Just curious what the go-to bit is for most people.
So the Mylers deal more directly with ropers than we do, but I would say any of the ported bits, the correctionals, like, let's see. We have a couple of mouthpieces like this. We have a couple. These are two different types of correctionals. So basically, a correctional is a ported bit that looks like a curved bit until you pick it up in the middle, and then it collapses. So what a correctional does is it has a port that offers a lot of tongue relief, but when you pull back on both reins, it also applies a fair amount of tongue pressure, especially in a shank bit that has a lot of leverage. So it's popular with roping because again, speed, maneuverability, precision, and timing of your rein action is really important. So we have a number of different correctionals. The Mylers actually hand make correctionals that do have a twist because people ask for it. A twist is not something that we're huge fans of simply because we're not, like, a twist's purpose in life is to cause pain. So when you put a twist on the side of a bit, it's there to cause pressure on the bar and the lip. And if it's a slow twist and there's a ridge, it's a sharp pressure. What the Mylers did with their twist, and this is a secret, don't tell anybody I told you guys, but they took the twist, and I don't have one here to demonstrate, but they softened it so much that it looks twisted, but when you put it against your finger to test how sharp it is, it feels almost like the bar of a regular bit. So it looks twisted, but it doesn't apply that pain that twisted bits typically are wanting to apply to the bar and the lip. Because if you have to apply pain to communicate with your horse, then you have other issues going on. So, but they do make ported bits like this that have a soft Myler twist on each side of the bit. And ropers seem to really love those. But Bob Myler is actually a great resource for roping bits. Because he does cowboy mounted shooting, and he's really up on all of the speed sports like that, where you need that really excellent maneuverability. So he's a great person to consult with.
Does the weight or material of your reins affect how a bit is functioning? Or is it just your
it's kind of a difficult question. So if your reins are really thin and light, then no, you're not going to have a very good feel yourself. It's really going to affect your hands more than it's going to affect your horse. Unless you're actually, and I've never seen, but I've heard of people using weighted reins and weighted bits to kind of bring the horse's head down. Again, we're not huge fans of that. But the weight of the rein is really going to be related to how your hands are. So when you go to choose a cheek piece, especially in Western where you have leverage cheek pieces and ring bits, the cheek really is dependent on your hands. So this is a 5-inch shank. If you have a really light and soft hand, if you tend to be really tentative with your hands, then this shorter shank is probably going to give you a really slow rein response. And a heavier rein might help you pick that up a little bit better. But really, the kind of rein is going to be your personal preference. I mean, one of the things that big slobber straps, I find they're just clunky. A lot of people like to trail ride in them, but they get wet and gross. And personally, it's not something that I like, but they look cool. And so that's personal preference. But when you go to choose a cheek piece for choose it for your hands, and then get whatever rein feels good to your hands. If it's not comfortable, like the width of the leather, like finding a 1/2 inch 5/8, that fits comfortably in your grip versus what a larger person might prefer. They might prefer a 1-inch strap. Then that's your personal preference. But get something that's comfortable for you to hang on to, that if you're going to be trail riding, especially for hours and hours and hours, that you don't have to deal with a lot of extra strap. And I had at one point reins that had Velcro on the end, and they kept getting hooked on everything, like on my saddle pad, on everything. So that's really personal preference. But when you choose a cheek, choose it more for your hands than you do for your equipment.
Elizabeth asked, good bit to restart at OTTB that's been off the track since September.
So OTTBs are really interesting because they have a slightly different mindset. So they've been trained, if they actually were raced on the track, they've been trained to run faster when you pull on the reins. So that can make it really difficult to start training them. So the bit that we typically, if you call Dale and ask him which bit to start an OTTB in, he's 90% of the time he's going to say you should get a combination bit. Because the combination bit with the 04 mouthpiece is going to allow you to engage the reins without engaging the mouthpiece. So with a horse like that, you don't want to give him a signal that makes him go faster. You want to give him a signal that makes him relax. And because the combination bit uses halter pressure points first, it's basically the perfect tool for OTTBs. Now, if they've been restarted under saddle and have just been laid off for a while, that's a different conversation. But if they're fresh off the track and haven't been touched, and this is going to be their first sort of step at rehab, then the combination bit is an awesome tool.
Can you use the combo bit indefinitely, or would it be better not to?
You can. So I have a 17-year-old horse who's still in a combination bit because she's kind of a pill. The beauty of the combination bit is that the mouthpiece is incidental. So you don't, when you're choosing a bit, like a shank bit or a ring bit, you're going to spend a lot of time focused on the mouthpiece because that's the thing you're actually engaging when you engage the cheek piece. When you use a combination bit, the mouthpiece is not so critical. So a good place to start is with that 04 mouthpiece, which is like this. And you can really ride in it as long as you want. So, I mean, Breeze is going on 15, 17, so 14 years in her combination bit. We do have the combination bit in more advanced mouthpieces. So we have the level 3 mouthpiece, the really soft mouthpiece in a combination bit, but I've never switched her out to it just because I'm like, why? I'm riding off the nose and chin and pull pressure. I almost never use the mouthpiece, so the mouthpiece is not a big driver for me to change the bit. So my 22-year-old horse, I also broke in the combination bit, and when she was probably, and they're trail horses, I only do trail, when she was probably 12 or 13, I transitioned her into a little shank bit because, quite frankly, she's so well behaved and so obedient and submissive that the combination bit, I was like, well, I don't really need all of this anymore. I'm riding her off my seat and my legs, and she's just a super horse, unlike her offspring, who is Satan's spawn. And will remain in the combination bit for her foreseeable future. But her mother is a lovely horse, and so she's in a little shank bit with a level 3 mouthpiece, and she goes quite well in it, and I never have any issues with her of being obedient or responsive or responding to my signal. So again, really listen to the horse will tell you.
Okay. Judy, can you tell us a little more about the form that you have on your website that they can go fill out if they have questions about their specific horse?
So it's basically a questionnaire that asks you the basics, a basic primer of like, how old is your horse? What kind of horse is it? But it will ask you about your horse's personality. It will ask you about your horse's spook. It will ask you about how often you ride your horse. So dealing, with horses, the more time and patience you put into a horse, the greater the return. But the reality is most of us work, 5 days a week. And so a lot of us are just weekend warriors, and we can only put 4 to 5 hours a week on a horse. So that is going to give Dale a different sense of, what you can accomplish with the bit. So he's going to ask you, how often do you ride, and what's the duration of your rides, and what are you trying to accomplish, and what kind of bit have you been riding in? And that's a really important question because, like I said, we don't want to make a lateral move, and there's no benefit to that. So it's amazing the number of people have no idea what they have in their horse's mouth. They'll say, oh, it's a D, or it's an egg butt, or it's an O-ring, or it's a shank bit. But if I say, but what is the mouthpiece? They're like, well, I don't really remember. I put it on him every time I bridle him, but I don't know. So know that. You should know what that is because, your safety depends on that thing that you keep bridling your horse up with. So he's going to want to know what the mouthpiece and the cheek piece are that you've been using and that you've had the most success with. And then from there, when he gets those answers, that kind of gives him a little bit of a snapshot of what he can expect when he actually either talks to you or communicates with you via email. It just depends on the situation. And that's what it's for. It's a personal contact, though. It's basically asking you these questions so that he doesn't have to spend your time on the phone going through that every time. So you just fill out the form, it goes to him, he communicates with you, and then, then you come back to Valley Vet and get your bit.
Awesome. Very good. And remember, we have 15% off of Myler Bits until the 15th, I believe, right?
Yes, until June 15th.
You get a free hat now.
Free hat.
If you buy a Myler Bit. So we are also going to choose a winner for today, and they will get a consultation with Dale and the bit that they come up with during there. So the winner is Leah Smalley.
Yay!
Congratulations, Leah. Send us a PM and we'll get the information from you that we need. So thank you, Judy. We really appreciate you coming on and answering everybody's questions.
Absolutely.
About all of this. So
We had a ton of comments.
Yes.
We had a ton of questions, and they're still coming in. So if you have additional questions, please
Yeah.
keep putting them in the comments. Or like Judy said, fill out the questionnaire, and somebody can help you out. But thank you, Judy, so much. So much
Thank you
great
all, Mel.
information.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.